to another week of SEC picks here on Tide 102.9, 100.9, the home of Alabama sports. I'm Marquis Munson, brand manager of Tide 102.9, 100.9, and joined by the best producer we have on staff, James Hardy. What's up, James?
Getting a little double homecoming this weekend, not only with Alabama, but with my Morgan Academy Senators down in historic Selma later tonight as we're filming. So certainly good luck to the Senators and, of course, to our Crimson Tide coming up tomorrow evening.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't end like the Troy LSU homecoming, and we can enjoy the weekend and have a good time and get a victory down at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Now, if you want to look at the staff predictions for Alabama, Arkansas, head on over to Tide1029.com for all our staff predictions, including myself, James Hardy, all the on-air staff, as well as the producers as well. So make sure you check that out at Tide1029.com. Now, we're going to break down the first SEC game, and that is BYU at Mississippi State, 11 a.m. game. James, who do you have in this early game against the Bulldogs, who's been struggling as of late?
And BYU's been struggling as well. Let's not forget their encounter, BYU's encounter with LSU to open up the season. They got moved from Houston to New Orleans due to Hurricane Harvey, and LSU blanked them in the Superdome. And I expect, with it being at home, the return trip for BYU after hosting Mississippi State in that home-and-home series last year, I suspect that the Bulldogs get a little bit of revenge and also get a very nice victory in front of the home folks at Davis-Wade Stadium.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Mississippi State Bulldogs in this one. Last week had a good game against Arkansas. I think they carry that momentum on at home against BYU. BYU is a good football team, but I'm going to go with the Mississippi State Bulldogs in this one. And speaking of a team that the Gamecocks beat last week, and that's the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are playing the Alabama Crimson Tide, and South Carolina scored 48 points on a team. Now South Carolina is going to go possibly upset Butch Jones after a bye week. James, Tennessee, South Carolina, that game, who do you have for momentum?
I tell you, South Carolina has that momentum coming off of, in my mind, their best performance of the season last week against the Arkansas Razorbacks at Williams-Brice Stadium. Remember, South Carolina beat Tennessee last year down in Columbia, and so I don't like where things are going in Knoxville for Butch Jones all the way around when it comes to his team's performance, but also the support he's getting from the Volunteers fan base, and I like South Carolina to capitalize on that and go on the road and step into Neyland Stadium and snatch the W.
So you mean to tell me you have Tennessee losing twice at home early on in the season?
Yes.
Twice at home. That's big. I'm actually going to go on the other side. I'm going to go with Tennessee. Now, I know on these videos I've been picking South Carolina a lot, so I have to change it up a little bit. And I just can't see this Tennessee team losing at home twice in the last 2 weeks. And I think they use this bye week to kind of get the momentum back going. I think they have a good game against the Gamecocks, and they come back with the victory. I know the Gamecocks had a good game against Arkansas last week where they scored 48 points, but I just don't think they're going to beat this Tennessee team. This Tennessee team needs to win a game, and this is going to be the determined factor on whether this team wants to play for Butch Jones or not. So we'll find out tomorrow in Tennessee, in Knoxville. And one of the big games of this weekend is number 10 Auburn Tigers versus the other Tigers at LSU. Battle of the Tigers, James, at Tiger Stadium.
Oh, there you go. So it's kind of a Tiger weekend all the way around. Bengal Tigers and the orange and blue Tigers. And both of them coming off of some of their best performances of the season. LSU getting a big road victory at Gainesville against the Florida Gators to kind of take some of the heat off of Ed Orgeron that he suffered in that homecoming loss to Troy University. But Auburn's won 3 SEC games in a row by convincing margins and have played well all across the board. I'm still kind of skeptical about LSU's ability to score points. I do think Auburn has the better offense, but it's going to come down to the defenses this week. Both teams with really the strengths of their team on the defensive side of the ball. But I think Auburn, under Kevin Steele, certainly has improved on defense dramatically over what we've seen the last decade or so. Down on the Plains. And I think for that reason, with the better players and the improved play on defense over the last couple of years, I like Auburn matchup-wise on defense against LSU's offense. That'll be the difference in an Auburn victory.
I'm going to go in the same way. I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers here. And like I said, you know, I know people in Alabama don't want to hear us picking Auburn, and they don't want to hear us praising Auburn, but this Auburn defense is really good. I don't know if they're Clemson good yet, but they're really good, and they're probably one of the top 5 defenses in the country right now, along with Alabama and Clemson. So I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers in this one, unless Coach Ogeron can get a Hummer that he got from Ole Miss to go rush in the backfield for him. I know Darius Geis is good, but I just don't see this LSU team who's struggling at quarterback, who has, you know, one guy at the running back position, and I just don't see them scoring on a team like this Auburn defense. And you know, the way Jarrett Stidham's playing so far this season, you know, is really impressive. So I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers in this one. And another team in Alabama defeated these two teams, outscored both of these two teams 125-3. And now I guess they're going to be competing in the Blowout Bowl this weekend, and that's the Vanderbilt Commodores versus the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, which one of these teams, James, is going to finally redeem themselves after that blowout loss that they had to Alabama?
I think the Rebels are. They're at home. And so this is one of their few opportunities that they really have remaining on their schedule, maybe outside of a trip to Arkansas where they've struggled over the years traditionally in that matchup. But as far as Vanderbilt coming to Oxford, DeVault Hemingway Stadium, I like Ole Miss to put it together on the back of Shea Patterson and to get the W.
Yeah, I think the most talented quarterback is on the other side of the field, and that's with the Ole Miss Rebels. So I'm going to also go with the Ole Miss Rebels. I think Shea Patterson had his moments in that Alabama game to where he could have made some kind of plays, and he just didn't get the job done. I just don't think this Vanderbilt team is that good. I think we hyped them up a little bit too early after the first couple games of the season. I really don't think they're that good. This Ole Miss team, despite all the allegations and Hugh Freeze's departure, they've still been playing pretty well, you know, ignoring the Alabama game. So I'm going to go with the Ole Miss Rebels in this one. Now, one coach that is, I won't say he's struggling, and he's not on the hot seat, but it's definitely a coach that he needs to start getting some victories, and that's Jim McElwain. Now, Jim McElwain has escaped a lot of opponents, but he couldn't escape a victory last week. So now let's see what Jim McElwain can do this week when he plays a Texas A&M team who's riding off momentum after that Alabama game. Even though they lost that game, competed very well 27-19 and still competed throughout the game. Kellen Mond had a good game as well. And now they travel to Gainesville, Florida.
Even though John Chavis has come under some fire in College Station for his performance as defensive coordinator over the last couple of seasons, that may have been John Chavis' finest hour last week. Even though it was a loss to Alabama, they came up with a really good game plan and executed it, for the most part, pretty well, going against Jalen Hurts and that Crimson Tide offense, and going against a Florida offense that certainly isn't anywhere close to as dynamic as what the Crimson Tide showed. I think Texas A&M builds off of some of that momentum that they got last week, even in a loss at home to Bama, and I'd like them to go on the road and get the win at Florida.
Yeah, see, now I'm starting to moonwalk on my comments. I said that Florida was probably the 4th best team in the SEC, along with Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn. And now I'm kind of Michael Jackson moonwalking that statement after watching that game last week. But I do think that this Texas A&M team is good. I like how they played. I think that was a game that if Kevin Sumlin would have got blown out against Alabama, I think that would have been his job. But the fact that he competed after, you know, a tough loss to UCLA and has bounced back, and even though they lost to Alabama, you know, they're still playing for their coach, per se. And I think Texas A&M goes on the road and they get the job done. I think Kellen Mond is going to be a stud. If he's not going to be a stud for the rest of the season after that Alabama game where he kind of got some little bit of motivation, I think he's definitely going to be a stud next year as well. So I'm going to go with the Texas A&M Aggies winning on the road in this one. And now the final game of the SEC breakdown. The Missouri Tigers head on over to Athens, Georgia. Don't laugh, man. We're supposed to be breaking this down. We're supposed to be unbiased as possible. Missouri travels to face the Georgia Bulldogs, who are hot right now.
You can't be unbiased when it comes to the truth, and the truth right now is that Missouri football is a joke, especially with their defense and really just the state of the program over the last couple of years. And unless Georgia just fails to step off the bus, I don't see any way that Missouri's even competitive against the Georgia Bulldogs.
I wonder if Michael Porter Jr. can be a wide receiver. He's about like, he's a tight end size. He's like 6'7", 6'8". I think he can play. He can switch over to basketball to football maybe for one game.
They need all the help they can get.
Yeah, they do, and it's sad for Barry Odom, you know, filling in as a head coach, and now, you know, this is kind of be the season that he's going to be remembering, because it's going to be his first season where this team looks really bad. And I know we saw that game against Missouri State, and we saw, oh my God, this offense is going to be so dynamic. They scored 72 points on Missouri State, and then the rest of the season happened. And even though they competed well against Kentucky, I will give them that credit, but this Georgia team is just way too good. I think this Georgia team is going to run away with the SEC East. You know, depending on how, I think they do have to play Auburn still this year, so that's going to be definitely a game to look out for. But I think this Georgia team is going to run through the SEC East, and it also is going to happen this week as well. I know Missouri had their dominance in the SEC East. They kind of slid on by into the SEC championship games, but I don't think they slide anywhere. Call them at Athens, Georgia. And that does it for another week of our SEC predictions. Remember, subscribe for that YouTube page. Also, check us out at Tide 102.9, 100.9, and also download that Tide 102.9 app at the Google Play Store. I guess it's called Google Play Store. I don't know. I don't have an Android. Do you have an Android?
No.
Yeah. See, I don't know anybody who has Android. But if you do have an Android, head on over to Google Play or head on over to the cool brand, Apple brand, and download it at that Apple Store. Download that Tide 102.9 app. For Marquis Munson, James Hardy, that does it for our SEC picks here on Tide 102.9, 100.9, the home of Alabama sports.